And Obama came out and said, I want to have the unilateral U.S. bombing of northwest Pakistan. Mrs. Clinton said, no, you don't want to do that. McCain said no. Even Bush said no. And now the U.S. is doing what Obama demanded. The U.S. is bombing northwest Pakistan. And indeed, the U.S. and NATO troops and the Afghan troops are preparing to invade Pakistan across the Afghan border. Now, why are they doing that? This is the one part of the world where they still talk about bin Laden, Al-Qaeda, the war on terror, all of this idiotic mythology. Why are they doing it? They want to destroy the Pakistani central government. You probably saw the statement the other night from the Prime Minister of Pakistan, Gilani. He says, our national honor and sovereignty does not allow foreign troops to come into our country. And he's absolutely right. But the U.S. and NATO are now going to do that under the new policy.
Two allies in the war on terror find themselves at odds. Pakistan's foreign minister claims U.S. missile strikes inside Pakistan violate international law. Lara Logan spoke exclusively to Pakistan's new president about the tension between his country and Washington.
There's been a dramatic escalation in the number of U.S. predator strikes on Pakistani soil. Are these strikes achieving anything?
Well, obviously the people who are using the strikes are confident that they're doing something, otherwise they wouldn't be at it. At the same time, I have a political issue with it, which says that it's undermining my sovereignty, and it's not helping win the war on the hearts of mind of people. Because one thing that democracy brings in, and which is an agreed and accepted formula, is it brings in the people into the war. And that, if you lose, then you're not really winning. You're practically losing in the long run.
The goal is to destroy Pakistan. You see Iraq now carved into 3 parts. Pakistan will be into 4 or 5 parts. It'll be Sindh, Pashtunistan, Baluchistan, Waziristan, and on, and that will never end. That's the goal. Now, why are they doing that? Not so much because it's an Islamic country, although that does figure in. Mainly because it's a potential ally of China. It's traditionally friendly to China, and under conditions of world crisis, Pakistan would tend to gravitate back towards China. So look at our hit list now. We've got not Iran on the hit list anymore. Iran is now a candidate to be played against Russia. But the hit list is now Sudan and Pakistan. So that's the change. And Obama is the one who demanded the attacks on Pakistan, when everybody else said no. And Cheney was horrified by that. Cheney almost had his 99th heart attack over the deal with North Korea, and this was done by Rice. But attack Pakistan, get ready to attack Sudan, get ready to attack Zimbabwe, get ready to attack Burma. In many cases, it's done under humanitarian considerations. It's not bin Laden, Al-Qaeda. Pakistan is the exception.
A warrant of arrest for the arrest of Omar Hassan Ahmad al-Bashir, the president of Sudan, for war crimes and crimes against humanity. Omar al-Bashir is suspected of being criminally responsible as an indirect co-perpetrator, or in the alternative, as an indirect perpetrator, for intentionally directing attacks against an important part of the civilian population of Darfur, Sudan, murdering, exterminating, raping, torturing, and forcibly transferring large numbers of civilians and pillaging their property. This is the first warrant of arrest ever issued for a sitting head of state by the International Criminal Court.
But in most of these places, like Sudan or Zimbabwe, it's human rights. Goes back to Carter. right? Goes back to the time when Brzezinski was running the National Security Council. So what you've got is a shift. Instead of having imperialism with right-wing slogans, you've got imperialism with left-wing slogans. But the content is either the same or, I would argue, worse, because the neocons had one benefit. They picked on relatively defenseless states. In other words, everybody knew there was no way that Iraq could strike the United States directly. It's not even easy to see how Iran could strike the U.S. directly. But when you get to Russia and China, that looks very different, doesn't it? Because now there are intercontinental ballistic missiles and H-bombs, and they can defend themselves, and they will. So the neocon game is over, but you can see that at least they had some limits to their insanity, whereas with Brzezinski, the insanity is essentially unlimited.
Nuclear proliferation to how are we going to deal with a set of common security concerns along the Afghan border and terrorism. And what I said in the letter is the same thing that I've said publicly, which is that the missile defense that we have talked about deploying is directed towards not Russia, but Iran.
Tell you, Mr. Secretary of State, tell you definitely those missiles are going to be deployed in Poland?
Well, the Russian missiles don't exist in Kaliningrad yet, and there are two sets of missiles. There is the interceptors for the MD European site, and then there are the short-range Patriot missiles that we actually want.
Anti-aircraft.
Anti-aircraft.
So you're not getting the anti-missile missiles, however.
That's up to the United States. The new administration needs to make up its mind. We accept that.
Mr. Biden said we're going to reset Russian relations, which means we're going to move towards some kind of détente. And that's the price of Moscow, is it not?
Well, MD is an American system. We also want to have good relations with Russia. Poland actually has 14 billion euros of trade with Russia. Russia is an important supplier of energy. We want to have the best possible relations with Russia.
Mm-hmm. The idea, of course, is that with Bush or McCain, the U.S. is disliked, the policy is discredited, nobody wants to go along with this. The demagogy of Obama is that with this new face, somehow you can now get throngs and throngs of young dupes and individuals who have really no clue what they're doing to support this stuff. In other words, Obama wants Europe as a tool against Russia. And I would urge you, don't go there. Realize that that is what you're being offered, and don't do it. And if Obama comes from London to Paris to Berlin, it would be important for people to go out there and say, well, or not to go out there, say, we don't want any part of this. You had the Cuban Missile Crisis in 1962. That was bad enough. The Polish missile crisis is going to be worse, because there are elements in Poland, there are elements in the Czech Republic. There's even an element in Lithuania. There's a forward tentacle of that system in Lithuania, right on Russia's doorstep.
Did the Secretary of State say we're going to bring Ukraine into NATO?
No. Oh, that's a good
She did not.
Well, we stand by the Bucharest Consensus, which is to say they will one day become members of NATO, but not just yet.
And the Eastern Initiative.
Okay, what is the goal of that? It is the ability to have a first strike, surprise attack, to destroy the Russian nuclear deterrent on the ground, and then the second strike launched by the Russians can somehow be suppressed by these missiles in Poland. So it is a step towards World War III. And it is Brzezinski, another angle that goes with it. The independence of Kosovo, under what amounts to a criminal organization, in my view, is another one of Brzezinski's projects. And this, of course, is designed as an affront to Russia. Today we have the indictment of the capture of this guy, Karadzic. Karadzic is a very bad guy, but why now? And what's the goal? This is designed to further inflame relations with Russia, even as a possibility of war between Russia and Georgia comes on the horizon. So this is now a full strategic envelopment. This is not just Iraq and the Persian Gulf. This is now a worldwide strategy. Instead of we need to take advantage of the stockpiles of